it's something I think about often actually. But I mean, I'm on that journey now, and I mean, we have you now, Candice, that we can bounce these type of thoughts and ideas of. Yeah, that's how it seems.
Yeah, no, it's worth a lot more than 2 cents. All of you, everything that you've shared, a lot of the things that you guys have shared this morning, it's also some things that I'm also only hearing for the first time. I thought I knew it all. But as an entrepreneur, you can never know it all, right? There's a paradox called the wisdom paradox, right? It says the more I know, the more I realize how little I actually know, right? And that's for entrepreneurship as well, right? Dumile probably thought he'd always be in the wine business. Candice probably thinks she's always going to be in the finance business. Nathan probably thinks he's always going to be in the website business, right? But you don't know what happens when we leave here. We don't know what happens tomorrow. We don't know if we wake up next week and you've got something brand new, right? But at the core of that, when we go back to resources in the room, the resource is always people helping you connect, right? And the cool thing is really people are scared of AI, but at the end of the day, I can't go to AI and ask him, look here, resources, right? It makes more sense to speak to a person because you have to connect the dots first, and that connecting the dots actually happens with conversation. It happens over coffee. It happens in a get together. It happens if I should have to go to the southern suburbs to go have a conversation with someone there, right? So it happens all the time, but it happens with people in the presence of people, right? Regardless of where we are. So a question that's really come up out of this entire conversation, you guys have really shared a lot, and I feel like it's episodes within episodes, right? And we will unpack that as we go on. Is really the question is, so Dumile, Candice, Nathan, you guys are on that growth path now, all in various stages, right? But successful enough to really establish a brand that will shake the world, right? So if you had to go back, right, you know where you are now, right? So you've got hindsight, right? So if you had to go back and you had to give that young Dumile, that young Candice, that young Nathan, that initial bit of advice, I think Nathan touched on it already, and I think that's probably going to be his answer. What would that one takeaway be? Because the reason I'm asking, because we are doing it for the entrepreneurs, right? So there is a Dumile sitting, there is a Candice, there is a Nathan sitting, waiting for this answer. I'm here now before I even embark on that journey, right? What tool can you give me to keep in my toolbox to actually take forward as I embark? What is that one thing? Whoever feels ready first. Yeah, I don't wanna do 1, 2, 3. Like whoever feels ready first.
That's a bit of a loaded question. So, is this any piece of advice?
No. Specifically, you are giving the advice to yourself. So you already touched on it when you started Big Beard in 2020. I know. That's why I'm saying one, because I know that it can become a lot. But the one thing that you could have told young Nathan 2020 is about to register Big Beard Web Solutions or whatever the company was called then, and he's now seriously going to launch this thing that is going to take over this previous company. What's that one bit of advice that you would give?
Yeah, I think I'm just going to repeat what I said earlier, is definitely approach it, it's a weird thing to say, with a little bit less heart. There's a lot of heart in Big Beard.
Yeah.
A lot. Sometimes too much heart. So I would say maybe just be a bit more, brain focused, head focused. Not that I made stupid decisions or anything like that. I'm sure I did actually. But I think just kind of balance out the head and the heart a bit more, and definitely approach it as, I'm actually doing this thing to sell this thing so that I can make money, because that's what we're doing it for. It's for purpose, like Candice said. It's for purpose. There's definitely purpose in there, but you also need to make money.
Also capitalism.
Yeah, you need to take care of your family, you need to take care of the employees, all those things. So approach it as if you're going to sell it that, and if you do that, you start focusing on things that you only start looking at a business maybe in year 3 or 4. Processes, structure.
Would I buy this thing I'm building?
Yeah, exactly. Would I buy this thing I'm building? Hiring with function and not a person in mind. which I think is a big one for me, is define the role and then hire the person that fits the role. But definitely approach it as if you were going to sell it, even if you're never going to sell it. I'm not saying that you are going to sell it, but you're going to be focused on a different group of things versus where you're like, I'm doing this thing. I'm building this website. I don't have to worry about the process because it's all here. No. First person, it's fine. Second person, it's slightly up. Third, fourth, fifth, sixth person, then you are in trouble. So I would say definitely think about it that way, because then structure will kind of come into place. Will I buy what I'm building is perfect.
Yeah, I think for me it's also going to be a combination. It's not really just one point that I can give you. So I'm going to probably overlap with a lot of what Nathan has said, and I think that's normal because the experiences tend to be similar. But the first thing I'm going to say is whatever it is that you're selling, product or service, right? Make sure that the product or the service can be communicated and absorbed by the client. That was one of my lessons. So for me, being in finance, there's a lot of jargon and a lot of things that comes across, right? And I had all of this experience, talking to the big corporates and knowing what the client needed, but they didn't necessarily understand what all of those terms meant. And so for me, one of my first big stumbling blocks was I actually had to figure out the language, not of corporate business, but of the SME business. I need to redefine that. So that could be translated across any product or service. If you're not speaking the language of your client, you're not going to sell. Then that brings me to the next point is know what your problem is, right? I could have thought that I was running a bad business at the time when I wasn't getting clients in my first 3 months. That wasn't the problem. It wasn't a marketing problem. It was actually the language that I needed to change. So know what your problem is and work on the solution to that problem, other than trying to reinvent your business 500 times over and it resulting in a failure. And then that, I think, speaks to the structure conversation that you had mentioned. Trying to get things out of your head on paper. I mean, that's in my consulting business, every single time that is the problem that I'm trying to solve. The entrepreneur knows how he's pricing, he knows how he's costing, but if I had to hire 3 people into that role tomorrow, there's going to be chaos, and the entrepreneur can't step away from the business, right? I deal with that from a finance point of view, but a lot of the time, that conversation is stepping into operations, into marketing, into IT, etc. So that's another statement we make in terms of structure. Absolutely agree with you. Create the business so that you're able to sell it. To bring it to some of what Dumile had shared also, starting your business or your entrepreneurial journey in one avenue doesn't always mean that you're going to stay on that path. I've definitely had my share of that in a certain way, shape or form.
Give us one example.
So when I started the business, as I said, I focused too much on introducing it as a financial management solution, that I wanted to help SMEs get their financial management right. But then I had to quickly understand that the key item that made SMEs interested in financial management was funding, right? I didn't think I was going to go back into funding despite doing it in my corporate career. But it made logical sense because it was the entry point for the financial management, which the SME didn't understand in its entirety. But it was much easier to have a funding conversation and then introduce financial management as a solution to their funding problems. So that's one example. The second will also link into what we've already discussed about meeting people and resources in the room. So I think I'm going to end here because I think we can all talk about all of the tad bits of advice. But the other key thing I would say as a final comment for myself is just be open to people. Be absolutely open to people because you never know who you're going to meet. Never make that mistake of thinking that you're networking enough, you're starting to make enough money, enough business, and now you stop attending all of those functions, etc. Because your opportunities are always going to be linked to people. And I'll share a personal example. So after I figured out that problem, all right, about the SME language and also realizing that people will be much better marketing and sales entry points than social media will ever be. Right? I get tons of business from referrals, word of mouth, because people sell that trust factor. And trust is a big problem in South Africa, right? It's not like the US market where there's hyper consumerism. People can go on social media and sell things because they have a lower level of distrust. We live in a very distrustful economy, so people will still be the key, whether it's product or service. So I've focused a lot of my initiatives not really on selling what I do, but just talking to people and understanding the financial problems, because it's a problem faced by 90% of SMEs. Strangely enough, that conversation linked me with someone in the US who became a business partner of mine, who I now do process consulting work for as well, that links back to the financial management that I do, right? So that's an example also of where I was again funding and financial management focused, but now I'm doing a little bit of process consulting that also speaks to the financial management outcomes. Why do I mention this? It never would have occurred to me 3 years ago that I would have been working with someone in the US that, by the way, I've not met in person.
Still,
I've not
to
met
this
person.
day.
I'm working with them for so long.
Yeah.
I have not met this person in person. We have video chats all the time. We got introduced, by someone who was in Pretoria, through someone that I knew that was traveling up and down, very, very crazy. But the thing that it comes down to is now I also have an insight into a US market dealing with SMEs, and also bringing that expertise back to South African SMEs. Again, plugging back into that process system, getting your business selling ready, which always ties back into a financial management discussion.
Yeah.
It's always going to come back to that. It's always going to come back into a funding discussion. So the 2 points that I wanted to end this comment with is that resources, people, they matter so much. Do not cut yourself off from people, from networking, because that 6 degrees of separation, man, it's real. Your success is a function of people. And that's the final lesson that I'm going to end this with.
Sure. That was a lot.
That's good stuff.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff.
It's yummy.
I think to the younger me, I would say time. It's going to take time. It's not you start today, tomorrow you're hitting 1 million. It's
When
going
you're
to
young,
take
you
time.
think that. Right?
Yeah, when you're young, you think that. You think, I've got this idea, I'm gonna make it. And I think also to the younger me will be find an expensive problem to solve. I had a conversation with a gentle guy who helps these private sector companies. He gives advisory role, these listed companies on the JSE, and he asked me, the time that you're spending on your company, is it worth it? Are you taking as much money out of it? Are you making as much money out of it with the time that you're spending on the company? Because I think when we start a company, we essentially start a company with a problem because you need to feed your family. But then we don't understand ourselves as, are we coming in as an employee of the business, or am I coming in as a founder? So it goes then to what you were saying was, if I'm starting the company as a founder, I'm starting this company for me to sell it. So I'm starting this product, I'm going to sell it. And once this product gets bought, I'm out. I've made my money, I'm out. But now if you're coming in as an employee, you then have to think, okay, I need to earn a salary. So am I getting paid for the time that I'm spending on this business? Am I, if I was going to go to Standard Bank and apply for a job there, Standard Bank will pay me X amount. So this company essentially has to pay me as well X amount. So it's those kind of things like, time will take time. You can't do it on your own. You can't wear the CEO hat, the CFO hat, the marketing hat. It's impossible to do, because then it creates that hot thing that you mentioned, where any suggestion becomes an emotional. If someone is saying you're not doing enough marketing, it becomes an emotional jab. Because at the end of the day, the business itself has to make money, and you make money from sales.